Chaos.radio. Music, podcasts, entertainment.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of NEWSWAVE, written, produced and recorded in the heart of Cornwall by the team here at Chaos Radio. I'm your host, Tom Howe, and I'll be guiding you through some of the insightful guests and exciting news content that we've enjoyed across Chaos Radio this past week. On today's show, we mark International Women's Day with the awe-inspiring team at the Women's Centre Cornwall who, in their own words, hosted an event at IntoBodmin on March the 8th to celebrate, reflect and vision a world in which women and girls are empowered to fulfil their potential free from inequality, violence and oppression. Janice Rose, who you can catch on Friday afternoons here on Chaos between 1 and 4, and I were there and had the chance to speak to some truly incredible women, including Anne-Marie Bala, co-ordinator for the International Women's Group at the Women's Centre Cornwall, and from Beth Williams, their communications and training coordinator. We'll also hear from Charlotte Patton, a women's health doctor at St Austell Healthcare, who joined us straight off the stage following a powerful panel discussion on women's rights around the world. Away from that, but continuing the theme of supporting powerful women in the community, we're joined by Emma Jenkin of Coalthus and Yeth Canuic as we look ahead to Pensaithan Gernowek, a weekend designed to give Cornish speakers and learners a chance to use the language in an enjoyable way and in a friendly, stress-free and relaxed environment.
NEWSWAVE.
Our first stop of the afternoon, though, is the excellent facilities at IntoBodmin. If you don't already know, get to know, because they're doing some incredible work in and around the Bodmin community. They're a cultural advocacy organisation that actively promotes Bodmin as an attractive, engaging, inspirational and progressive town, as well as a place where communities are strong and businesses innovative. What better location then for a day of events to mark International Women's Day 2025? Joining us on Chaos Radio to explain more about what was on offer was Anne-Marie Bala, co-ordinator for the International Women's Group at the Women's Centre Cornwall.
NEWSWAVE.
It's definitely a vibrant day, which is what we hope for. And it's really an offering and an invitation for the community and, around Bodmin and Cornwall to celebrate, but also to reflect on women's rights on International Women's Day, and also acknowledge the impact and the contributions of women around the world, and also international women in our community. Also, whilst acknowledging that we are all international women, as we are of the world, women of the world, in our own right. We thought of the day as being a community day, so really open to all the community, including men and children, and we were thinking about women's, care responsibilities. So we wanted to offer opportunities for children to be entertained. And so we offered a mix of crafts, activities, a children's dedicated segment like storytelling, an international food buffet because food brings literally everyone together, where we had the opportunity to have contributions from various organizations around Cornwall and local international shops in Bodmin, and also practitioners that are offering workshops such as the tea ceremony and the spindle workshop, and also the henna practice. We tried to cover a few different aspects of engaging women, whether they wanted a space for quietness or more networking and chatting and conversation.
You did really well to remember all of that as well, so well done. Can I ask what International Women's Day represents to you?
Yeah, well, International Women's Day is an opportunity to remember that our rights were hard-earned. We stand on the shoulders of women that came before us that had to risk their lives for our rights on so many issues like voting, body autonomy, financial freedom and independence. It feels like it's, we're in the point in history where, women's voting rights in the UK were achieved just a little bit more than 100 years ago. So it's not that in very far past. And, it's just for me a chance to acknowledge the fact that women's rights were won with hard sacrifices, and and I want to see a world where women and girls live free of violence and male violence, and where men take responsibility for the suffering and the oppression that they cause women, but also to acknowledge the good men out there that really embrace and support and really elevate women in their lives, which is very much needed. This is that's why it's a community effort. It's with this hope to celebrate, to know that we're not there yet. Women are not free of violence, and so we're just continuing that work that was started generations ago.
Well, what would your advice be for people that maybe have been a bit anxious about sharing their story, or maybe they don't see their situation as a negative situation, they just think it's normal, they aren't ready to talk about it yet? What would your advice be to people in that situation?
I think for me it's about taking time and feeling like in yourself where you feel it's safe to speak out, find the right people to speak out to. The Women's Centre Cornwall is really set up to offer that listening opportunity to women through our helpline, through the Campfire Forum, via an anonymised app, and also one-to-one in our group sessions through the International Women's Group and other outreach opportunities. And and it's just really understandable that women have to find the right timing to because it's a vulnerable space. So I really emphasize the importance of safe spaces. So having those conversations when you are ready and with the people that that you will be received in a safe way to have those conversations. So we encourage that at the Women's Centre to create a space where women are received and actually honored for sharing their stories, because it is hard to share a story of struggle and vulnerability. And just for the wider community, you were saying before, just be part of the solution and not part of the problem. I mean, I think that's a really simple message, and find what that means for you as a person, as an individual, wherever you are in any environment. So it could be a workspace, it could be an educational sphere, it could be a intimate relationship or friendship. See how you are contributing to the conversation.
It shocked me a little bit, actually, to see that the first International Women's Day was in 1911, and that we're still talking now about some of the same issues we were 114 years ago, if my maths is correct. There's no doubt that progress has been made, but there is still, as you said at the top of the interview, there's still those levels of inequality. What are sort of the biggest challenges and some of the changes that you'd like to see made in the next few years? And I know that's a very broad question, and it will be different for each person we ask, I imagine, because they've also got their own lived experiences and their own sort of groups that they're involved in. But I just wonder, I think it's really powerful to get across what individuals would like to see change over the next few years and for the future.
Yeah, so I think it's a mix of kind of cultural change that we want to see and political acknowledgement. So, we speak about, basically, we see the biggest harm being caused by a patriarchal model, which harms both women and men alike, which creates kind of a situation of power dynamic when someone is inferior to someone else. So an entitlement where you feel that harming another to pursue your own goals is fair game. And so that's what we are kind of wanting to see change, this deep patriarchal kind of hurt and harm that is being produced across communities worldwide. Unfortunately, the statistics of violence against women are very much similar if you speak about Italy, if you speak about countries in South America like Argentina, across the world like in Ireland, the Middle East, and so that kind of goes to prove that this patriarchal imprinting is worldwide, is global, and so, but that has to transform into political, into policies that kind of put in effect laws to protect women from harm, whether that is physical, psychological, financial, and so it takes a massive acknowledgement of that harm existing, whereas certain countries and individuals really refuse to see that. So first step would be awareness and acknowledgement, and so let's start there, and that would be a good shift in what's been going on so far.
How can we all work together to make sure that we're all making a positive impact all year round, not just on International Women's Day?
Yeah, I mean, challenge the culture of misogyny that can happen, every day. And you speak about changing the world, and kind of it goes within. So it's kind of your inner world. What does your inner world look like? Does it look like a culture of, consent? Does it look like, are you able to speak up as a man to your fellow, friend, man, to call them out on, kind of misogynistic speak, the kind of the kind of chat that is objectifying women or demeaning women? Are you able to call out in your organization or your place of work, to have, to look around the table, are there enough women there? And if there aren't, why is that? I was a volunteer as well for community radio, in the community radio sphere. That's also in every sphere. It's where are the women? If there aren't any women there, why aren't they there at the table? And how can you call them in, really? And what needs to shift? Can you step back to platform, a woman? Empower the women in your life to achieve what they want. Take their care responsibilities, in parenting. Parenting, is that equal? Are you an equal partner in parenting and caring responsibilities?
NEWSWAVE.
Our thanks to Anne-Marie Bala, co-ordinator for the International Women's Group at the Women's Centre Cornwall. We'll continue our discussion around the Women's Centre now and bring in Beth Williams, their communications and training coordinator.
NEWSWAVE.
Yeah, the Women's Centre Cornwall is an independent women's charity. We've been around since 1996, so almost 30 years. And the essence of what we do is we stand alongside women and girls who are living with the impact of any form of sexual or domestic abuse at any time in their lives. And we do that through a really wide range of projects and services. So we support women who are facing multiple disadvantages, including women who are homeless, international women, women in the criminal justice system, so women in prison at HMP Swood Park, and women on probation across the whole of Dorset, Devon and Cornwall.
And in Cornwall, is there a problem? Is it a widespread problem? Because obviously it goes so under the radar. So what's the reporting statistics?
Yeah, it's absolutely a problem in Cornwall. I think the epidemic of violence against women and girls is everywhere, and there is often a myth that these sorts of things don't happen in Cornwall. We really hear that a lot. But yeah, the rates of both sexual and domestic abuse are very high in Cornwall. And yeah, so some recent statistics show that in the year 2024, there were around 22,000 domestic abuse crimes reported in Cornwall. And between 2021 and 23, 353 women were murdered through intimate partner violence in England, and 12 of those women were in Devon and Cornwall. So yeah, it's often something that isn't, widely spoken about mainstream, the epidemic of sexual and domestic violence that we're facing. But we really see, hear and feel the very real impact of these crimes on a daily basis at the Women's Centre.
And at the Women's Centre as well, I understand you have a helpline, so that's probably more likely to be the first port of call for most women. Obviously, when they phone you, they must be very distressed, but very welcome to have a listening ear.
Absolutely. I think sometimes women call the helpline and it may be the first time that they've ever spoken about the abuse that's been perpetrated against them. We've had women in their 80s, 90s calling us and disclosing their experiences for the first time, something that maybe has happened to them in their childhood. So yeah, sometimes women call and they're not able to speak or say anything, which is completely natural. And the women who answer the helpline are really highly trained to be able to meet women where they are and be there and go at their own pace and listen and believe and recognise that women are the experts in their own lives and experiences and offer them the support that they deserve.
So what are the most pressing challenges that you see women facing when they first come to use your services?
A really wide range of challenges. I think a lot of women come to us for support around childhood sexual abuse. We also support a lot of women who've been raped as adults. Women also experiencing a lot of challenges with regards to perpetrators of domestic abuse, particularly around child custody, family courts, women having problems and challenges within the justice system. A really wide range of experiences and challenges that women face that we hear.
So once the ladies have come to you and spoken to you on the helpline, what's the recovery pathway going forward for them?
Yeah, so we have a really wide range of projects and services. So we will really speak to each individual woman and try to determine what might be best for her in her unique circumstances. Our one-to-one specialist support service offers up to 20 weeks of emotional support. So women would go onto our waiting list and then be able to start accessing that one-to-one support, which is quite in-depth support for what we believe is quite a good amount of time for women to be able to access that free, confidential support. But it may be more appropriate for them to access them for other services. So we also have other services that really focus on bringing women back to some sense of safety within themselves and their body. We know the nature of trauma can really leave a lot of women feeling unsafe within themselves. So we have various types of support that women can access that allow them to kind of ground themselves, maybe while they're waiting for support. Or other women might choose to go to one of our other projects, like our International Women's Group, if English isn't their first language, as well. Or we also have a project for women with learning disabilities, neurodivergence and autism. So yeah, a really wide range of services.
Are your services time limited, or can women come back and get support from you over a long duration? Because we know how long it takes to heal from trauma.
Absolutely, yeah. We really recognise that healing is often lasts a lifetime in lots of ways. It really is a journey. And so we do have some women who access support with us one-to-one, and then they may go away for a little while once they finish support and then decide to come back. Our door is always open for that, but we will always have a conversation with the women. Sometimes it can be, just like a natural, inevitable part of the healing journey. Women feel as though they need some more support. And sometimes it can be the case that after a conversation with them, we remind them of all of the incredible, courageous work that she's done over the course of, when she's received support with us, and that she has the power to move through whatever she's feeling in this moment. And some women that might be all they need is a conversation. And for other women, it might be the right time for them to access support again about something else that's happened, or, another thing that's going on in their lives at that time. So, yeah.
I think it's so important to be nurtured and cared for and loved by women who have a lived experience of what you've been through yourself. You can talk to your friends, but they don't understand gaslighting, they don't understand abuse, they don't understand sexual abuse. They're there to care for you, but someone who has got knowledge of it, it's so vital moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think there are so many myths that exist in society that we're subjected to, through the media and through just everything that we consume sort of culturally, that tell us that often survivors are to blame for their own experiences. And sometimes, a lot of the time, women and girls who come to us really believe that they carry that shame and self-blame. So having women who are specially trained in the nature of sexual and domestic abuse to listen and to affirm to them that what's happened to them is not their fault, and that everything that they're feeling is completely natural, a natural response to the trauma of sexual and domestic abuse. It can be profoundly transformative and healing for women who are able to access support in that way.
Are people that come through your services also able to mentor people once they've healed?
Yes, so we do really recognise the value in women who've accessed support. For a lot of women, going on to then stand alongside other women can be a really additional healing part of their own journey. So we've got different options for that. So some women can go on to volunteer as specialist support workers. They can go on to train as peer mentors for women in the criminal justice system. And they can also engage with our Sorella Peer Support Project, which is for women with lived experience of sexual violence, standing alongside other women with experience of sexual violence as well. And that's really beautiful. The project does, lots of wonderful things, bringing women together to do creative things, getting out in nature, bonding with each other, sharing wisdom and skills. It's really special.
And if people want to find out more information about you, where's the best place for them to look?
So they can access our social media channels at Women's Centre Cornwall. We keep a lot of those social media profiles really updated with all of the beautiful work that we're doing and new updates and events and things like that. And then also our website can be a really useful source of information. Our news page on our website, we often publish reports on there about the consultations that we're where we're having our say about things that are going on nationally as well. I would say our social media or our website, or they can just give us a call and have a chat.
Well, it's been so lovely speaking to you today, and I don't think you realise how important the Women's Centre is. When I was experiencing abuse, you were the first people that I contacted. So I say heartily thank you. And from someone who couldn't speak 3 years ago, to now be in a radio presenter. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's so beautiful to hear the impact the Women's Centre had on you. And thank you to you for having the courage to reach out. I know it's not always easy.
I'm here today as an ally of International Women's Day, and I wondered what advice, education or information is available for men that are looking to address or improve behaviours towards women as well.
That's a really important question, I think, for us to be able to engage men in the conversation. And, we need men in this movement. We need men to be active as allies. And I think it's really important for men even just to start there, to be asking themselves that question, not from a place of shame, but from a place of, that genuine necessity, really, to be part of the conversation and the movement. And I think a lot of it can start with men reflecting on their own conditioning, their own misogyny. We're all subjected to that conditioning living in the society in which we live, and I think it can really start there within. And men to also call in other men when they hear misogyny, when they hear some of these beliefs or this ideology being kind of spread, or even just said in what can often be just like a casual way, but it is actually harmful and contributes to this culture. So I think men can really start there in that way, and listening to the voices of women, amplifying women and girls' voices, and being part of it, coming to the events and learning, educating themselves.
Perfect. Is there anything more you wanted to add at all that you think is important for people to hear or that we might not have covered?
I would say to any woman or girl listening to this who has never spoke to anyone about their experiences or is maybe feeling quite alone, particularly around International Women's Day, a lot of these conversations are being had and it can potentially be quite triggering. Our message would be that we're here for you, and we can go at your own pace. There's different ways that you can reach out to us. So you can call our helpline on 01208 77099, Monday to Friday 10 till 1, and Monday evening 6 till 9. And women are also so welcome to join our online community forum for women living with the impact of sexual and domestic abuse, and that's called Campfire. So they can search Campfire Forum in any app store or visit campfireforum.org.uk. So yeah, that's a really special community of women online to connect with one another and to reflect on their shared experiences.
NEWSWAVE.
A big thank you to Beth Williams, Communications and Training Coordinator at the Women's Centre Cornwall. Now, a big part of the day was a captivating panel discussion on women's rights around the world. One of the speakers was Charlotte Patton, a women's health doctor at St Austell Healthcare, who spent some time with Janice afterwards to explore the development of women's healthcare right here in Cornwall.
NEWSWAVE.
So I'm a women's health doctor at St Austell Healthcare. I'm also a clinical lead for women's health in Cornwall. So I focus on central Cornwall, which includes St Austell, Falmouth, Truro and Newquay, amongst obviously some of the smaller areas as well. And in that capacity, we'll be helping to improve women's healthcare in Cornwall through the use of women's health hubs, but it's in its early stages at the moment. And in addition to that, I have an educator role as well at the universities.
So during your career in healthcare, have you seen the changes in women's health, contraception and menopause? Big question.
It thankfully has rapidly changed. I really am almost ashamed to admit that, let me think, 7-8 years ago, if a woman came to have a conversation about HRT, it would have been almost a rarity, and the options would have been quite limited, and certainly knowledge would have been limited as well. And it was actually that lack of knowledge that drove me to think, actually, I want to know more about this, particularly around menopause care, and that's why I've strived to educate myself through different courses and qualifications. And I would say similarly around contraception, it's thankfully more widely spoken about. But the slight converse to that is that there is a lot of social media against contraception now. And often it's by people who aren't healthcare professionals, who may not have evidence base for the information they're giving out. And I do worry that that may have a damaging effect. So it has rapidly changed, mostly for the better, but there are some things that we need to focus on as well.
Growing up, when I was talking to my peers, we'd rarely talk about things like periods or name our genitalia correctly. But I see that's changing now, especially regarding period dignity. There's a lot more conversations opening up.
Yes, and you'll probably be aware that very recently it was the first time that an advert on television used red fluid instead of the blue fluid to show us the period pads that they were advertising, which it seems so obvious, but it is it's a forward step, to normalise having periods. So things have changed, and having that conversation and making it as normal as any other everyday topic of conversation is really important.
And do you think that's key of parents, or do you think it should be brought up in the education process?
As a parent myself, I think it's my duty to do that. I know lots of teachers in educational settings, and of course they can do their part, but it's our responsibility right from day one to educate our children. They are with us for the vast majority of the time. It's our duty to share personal information around body identity and so on. It's not to say that they can't receive education from school, but I don't think we should be saying it is a school's role solely.
So how does our understanding of our own bodies help us make better decisions? I heard you mention it in the talk, and it's something I'd just like to expand.
So I think there's a lot of negative perceptions around female bodies. It seems that body confidence is lower, self-esteem around women's bodies. And I think that comes from a lot of different places. So in my talk, I talked about social media, sort of medical documentation and illustration, societal expectations, religion, pornography, all sorts of aspects. And having that negative perception will really have a detrimental effect on the way that women think about themselves. So it's about changing the narrative, and that through art, which is what I'm doing with my project, I want people to explore their experiences, explore what they think about their bodies and realise that actually they are normal. We're all different, as I spoke about, but that is normal in its own right. And by doing that, it empowers us, and we can then have agency over our bodies, over our health decisions, our healthcare decisions, so that we feel more empowered.
So when you're running the art workshops, obviously I would imagine people are a little bit hesitant to start off with by drawing naked bodies, perhaps, body parts, perhaps. How do you see, as people develop through the class, do you see a change?
Absolutely. So to start with, I speak for about 20 minutes. So I have a very short presentation, mostly with images, to give them inspiration. So famous artists that are celebrating the female body. And then I show them examples of artwork that has already been produced by the workshop. And often people sit there fairly quietly to start with, taking it all in. And then I will just try and encourage people to start to voice their experiences, their opinions. And I don't know, everyone just starts to warm up. And there are going to be the odd person that sits there and wants to just be fairly quiet and take it all in. That's absolutely fine. You get the louder characters as well. And it's that lovely mix that's really synergistic. And it then, by the end of the 3 hours, we've all had a cup of tea and a biscuit. We've all drawn something beautiful, and everybody's, getting on really, really well and having that conversation.
I would love to see that taken out into the corporate state, where bosses can have conversations with their employees. That would be such a lovely thing to do.
I agree. I think the problem is there's often a deeply ingrained sense of hierarchy in organisations, and you are probably up against the fact that employees will feel quite wary about what they say, what they do in front of their employers and that hierarchical system. So there would have to be a sense of agreement that what was said within that space was safe and was accepted, and it was sort of almost separate to the normal working day.
I just think there probably should be more highlights around menopause and periods, and you should be able to talk to your boss and say, I've got a really heavy period. Today I'm going to do some light work, or have some awareness of menopause, because I still find in the employment arena, people laugh at it. It's something funny if a woman's having a hot flush, and it's not. It's something that needs to be understood. Do you still see that happening?
Absolutely. One of my job roles is education around menopause in the workplace, and also periods as well. I think it's absolutely essential that workplaces educate themselves. They get education in this. We also talk about champions, so menopause champions, for example, so that there is somebody that employees can go to specifically. That's not to say you shouldn't be able to have that conversation with everybody, but these people may be particularly knowledgeable, particularly supportive, and they may be able to signpost those people to support and help and so on. And of course, it's about making, considering changes that can occur in the workplace to support that individual with their experiences at the time.
And if people want to find out a little bit more about your work and what you get up to, and where can I go to look? Are you on the socials?
Yes, so I have an Instagram page, which is Cornwall_women's_doctor. I also have a Facebook page for my art project. So that is the Launceston Women's Health Art Project. So you can find information about my workshops and general work that I'm doing. The Instagram page is a bit of a mixture of health education and artwork.
Do you have any events coming up you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yes, we have a community art project at Piper's Pool Community Centre, and we also have an evening event. So the evening event is in May, first week of May, and it's at Restaurant G's in Launceston. So it's an evening event for women who perhaps obviously work in the working day, and you can book a ticket through Eventbrite. That is on the Facebook page, as is the tickets for Eventbrite for the Piper's Pool. Tickets are essentially free, but we do need you to book. The evening event is £5 to reserve your spot, but you do get that back throughout the evening at the bar or through a food order.
Well, it's been absolutely wonderful chatting to you. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you so much for speaking to me too.
NEWSWAVE.
Charlotte Patton there, a women's health doctor at St Austell Healthcare. Thank you to her. While we walked around the old library, home of IntoBodmin, we stopped some of the people in attendance to ask one important question. And here's some of the answers we received.
NEWSWAVE.
Can you tell me in one word what describes the women in your life?
Strong.
Full.
Independent.
Amazing. Powerful.
Family.
Inspirational.
Thoughtful.
Whole.
Beautiful.
Inspiring.
Caring. Feisty.
NEWSWAVE.
So interesting to hear the different responses there. Look out for further coverage here on Chaos Radio. But in the meantime, for more information or to offer your support should you feel able to do so, do head on over to womenscentercornwall.org.uk. Right, I'm Tom Howe and you're listening to NEWSWAVE on Chaos Radio. Time for something a little bit different now, and to this year's Pensaithan Gernowek weekend, which will be held on the 28th, 29th and 30th of March. Now, the aim of the weekend is to give Cornish speakers and learners a chance to use their language in an enjoyable way and in a friendly, stress-free and relaxed environment. Sessions will include workshops, lectures and traditional style lessons, alongside more practical sessions covering things like creative writing, crafts using Cornish and singing, with a new 2-day intensive course launched for beginners or near beginners with a focus on spoken language. Joining Ross Lannan to explain more was Emma Jenkin of Co-Authors Anieth Canuick.
NEWSWAVE.
Okay, so it's Pensaithan Gernowek, which is Cornish Language Weekend, and it's an annual event. So this year we're at Liskerno, which is New County Hall in Truro. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so it's a long weekend, and it's a chance for Cornish speakers to actually have a kind of an immersive experience in the Cornish language, because obviously there's not that many of us speakers, so you can't just pop into town and have a chat in the shop with somebody in Cornish. We don't have that luxury yet. So this weekend is kind of a chance for people that are learning to be surrounded by the language. So everything we'll do will be using Cornish. But we are aiming at all levels of Cornish. So we have everything from an immersive, intensive, brand new beginners course. So we've got a 2-day course, which is the Friday, Saturday, for people that have no Cornish or very, very little. So that will be kind of hoping to get people to be able to have a simple conversation by the end of it. And then we've got Friday is a crammers day, because we have exams coming up. So we always have the Friday is kind of really intensive lessons for people that are taking exams this year. And then Saturday and Sunday it's a real mix of kind of traditional style lessons, and then a few lectures, a few kind of practical workshops. This year we've got a poetry workshop, we've got a singing workshop. So for people of kind of all levels, you know, things that they can join in with. There's a craft workshop, you know, all sorts of things going on. And then we'll have a bilingual walk in the afternoon on Saturday. We'll have a discussion group. We're going to the museum in Truro in the evening on Saturday to see all their new exhibits. So a real mix of mix of stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like as Cornwall almost setting the standard here, because what other counties or nations really have a whole celebratory weekend just for their language?
I know. I mean, we're trying to keep up with people like the Welsh, who obviously have so much more facilities than we have, because there's so many more people speaking Welsh.
Yeah.
But we're doing our best to make him like those kind of environments where people can be surrounded by the language, which really helps to not only to kind of boost people's language abilities, but actually to kind of get the most out of the language. They have a chance to chat to other people.
Yeah, and we're very strong believers of, I know we've talked about it on the show before, like either if you don't use it, you lose it type thing. So surrounding yourself in a full weekend of people that are going to be talking Cornish 99% of the time probably is going to be great practice for people, isn't it?
And it's just a chance to have a bit of fun with the language. It's not all lessons. There is kind of a whole variety of other stuff as well. So so it's a great chance to meet other people that are speaking Cornish, and often people are having lessons online these days. So actually we've got people coming from all over the place. I know one lady that's at least one person's coming down from Scotland for the weekend.
No way.
So all of those people that are having their lessons online actually get to meet up in person, and you can't beat sort of sitting around having a pint together to kind of bond a bit better.
A pint? I think you mean a pasty.
well, there'll be pasties as well.
Okay, good. You saved yourself there. Now, this isn't a first, is it? There is a long kind of tradition of language weekends in general.
Yeah.
Kind of how long has this kind of been a thing?
Well, this year is our 50th year, actually.
No way.
Yeah, so it has it's not a new thing. We've had various different locations over the years. It gets more and more difficult to find venues that have enough rooms for us to accommodate, because we have probably 5 or 6 different sessions going on at any one time. So there's not that many places, because we use the Friday as well. We can't use a school. So yeah, trying to find somewhere that can accommodate kind of enough different rooms for us is quite tricky.
I bet. Yeah. And you mentioned there kind of there's different levels, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You've got kind of like your intensive side of it. But if anyone's listening today thinking, I know nothing, I'm a blank canvas.
Oh, this is perfect.
You do options for welcome beginners as well.
Absolutely. We've got this year, this is the first year we've done it, but we've got an intensive course for complete beginners. So people that just want to have a go. It's a 2-day course, and it's for people that have got literally no experience or just very little. So some people, if you'd done a bit a couple of years ago and thought, oh, well, I had a go, but I can't really remember any of it, this would be perfect. So it's a 2-day course, just to get to a point where you could have a basic conversation. So we're not looking at people being fluent by the end of it or anything like that, but it's just for those people that are thinking, I'd really like to learn, but I haven't really got time to go to a lesson every week, or I'd just like to have a go because I'm not sure if it would be for me or not. It's those people that this is kind of aimed at, really.
And I think we do underestimate learning another language is a big commitment, and it's hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not, well, when our aim as an organisation isn't to make everybody in Cornwall fluent in Cornish. However, some people will be. There are probably now a few hundred people that are fluent in Cornish. That we're still talking fairly small numbers, but thousands of people that know a bit. And there are more and more and more groups meeting up all over the place. Tonight I'll be at the Ale House in Truro if anybody fancies coming along to hear some Cornish. We have a conversation group that meets twice a month in Truro.
Brilliant.
And there are groups like that all over the place. So, there are more and more people just learning it a bit and chatting, using it.
And it's really apparent from like the work that you do, like even that just then mentioning that you're going to be kind of in a pub tonight talking about it, changing the environments, making kind of a relaxed, friendly, casual environment is really important as well, isn't it? Because like it makes it less clinical than like being in a classroom learning.
Absolutely. It's a living language. And we're trying to make environments where we're doing things we want to be doing just in Cornish. So, just for people to have a chance to sit and chat. It's not a lesson. It's just a chance to chat. People come along sometimes and just listen. If your ability isn't kind of high enough to join in, sometimes you're just listening to that kind of the language flowing over you can really help to get an idea of pronunciation and the flow of the language.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like it, and I love the idea of you just like chilling in a pub or a restaurant, like teaching people Cornish is brilliant.
Yeah, most Cornish I think is spoken in pubs, pubs or cafes.
There we go. There's an exclusive. Didn't expect that. We've got so much more to chat about. Going to talk more about the Cornish Language Weekend and your work within learning and speaking Cornish as well. And if you're just tuning in, we are still here, joined by the lovely Emma Jenkin from Speak Cornish. Hello.
Hello. Oh, Deith Da.
Dith da.
Jogging in it, sorry.
I keep forgetting Dith da. Right, I need to ingrain that in me.
Yeah. Or maybe Mitten Da at the moment. Good morning.
Good morning, Mitten Da. Okay,
Yeah.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Emma, we've had lots of comments coming in, people supporting. I've been asking you some questions throughout the little break as well. Various questions. Somebody asked the very offensive question of why do we need a Cornish language when we're in England? That set you right off, didn't it?
Well, Cornwall is a largely seen as a Celtic nation in the same way that Wales and Scotland and Ireland are. So,
yes, enough said about that.
Yeah.
We also had a message come in from one of our listeners saying, how come they don't teach Cornish in schools as well?
That is a very good question. We would love Cornish to be taught in schools. And there is a scheme which is run by Go Cornish, which is a voluntary scheme for primary schools with a gold, silver, bronze award system. Unfortunately, there's only one schools officer, there's only funding for one schools officer at the moment, so they've got about 30 schools, I think, just over 30 schools on that scheme, but there's a bit of a waiting list.
Okay. So if I was to ask you, why is it so important for us to keep Cornish language alive? What would you say?
It's part of our heritage, and once it's gone, it's gone. You know, it's the same thing as, you know, why do we keep things like gig rowing alive? Cornish music, you know, it's all of that is part of our culture. The language is really ingrained in everything around us because you see it in all of the place names. You know, it's a really big part of Cornwall. As you come into Cornwall from Devon, the place names change. You know, they're very distinctive, and that's because they're in the Cornish language. So, you know, we've just got all that history, and it feels such a shame to lose all of that.
So if I was to ask you kind of, what is your favourite thing about Cornwall and its language?
That's really hard to put into just like one thing. I mean, I love being in Cornwall. I love the fact that we're so close to the sea. I love all of that kind of the coastline. The coastline is particularly my kind of my feeling of home, I suppose. I hate it. I hate being too far from the sea. It makes me feel a bit claustrophobic.
I love that. And to be fair, I'm the same. I had this conversation with somebody recently about how I just don't have the travel bug. Like, I'm so content just at home, and I guess that's very kind of, we're very lucky living here, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why would you want to be anywhere else?
Exactly. Incredibly lucky. Let's talk a little bit more about kind of the community aspect of learning to speak Cornish, and obviously the language weekend itself. Kind of, how does the weekend like this really help to kind of bring a stronger community together?
I think because Cornish speakers are very spread out. You know, probably only half of the people that are learning Cornish are actually living within Cornwall. You know, there's a huge diaspora across the world. I'm not sure that we've got people coming from abroad this year. I don't know. Last year we had somebody that had come over from Japan. I mean, I think they were coming to Cornwall anyway. They were already learning Cornish. Right. So, you know, we know that there are people in Australia, in America, learning Cornish. You know, and all around the UK. So it's actually just a chance to kind of just to get together with all those people that you see online. That you know, there are lots of Facebook groups and Instagram groups, Discord groups, all sorts of things where people are interacting. But actually, to have that chance to just sit down in a really casual, you know, it's the lessons are great and all of the activities are great, but you know, the real value for me is that chance to sit and have a cup of tea with somebody and just chat and just kind of interact as you normally would with anybody else. Yeah. But to be able to do that in Cornish and to hear the people around you doing that in Cornish as well. And for learners, that's a massive thing, because actually just practicing speaking is not always that easy. You know, if you don't live in Cornwall, and even if you do live in Cornwall, it's not that easy to find lots of people to interact with. So it's, you know, it's the real chance for people to get together and just chat and be living in Cornish.
I love it. It's so cool, and it blows my mind that, like you said, people in Australia live in Cornish, because you imagine like people outside of Cornwall not having an interest as such in Cornish. Why would they if they're not here to use it? Yeah. But then as Cornish people, as a Cornishman myself who can't speak the language, I'm almost letting the side down, because you know, if I can't speak it as a Cornish person, then you know.
But I don't think everybody needs to be fluent. I think this is, you know, I think the way forward actually for Cornish is for everybody to know a couple of words. You know, if you could go down the street and hear people greeting each other with Deith da or Mitin da, you know, that would be amazing. Just those few words. And what we often hear from people that are kind of visiting Cornwall is that they don't hear Cornish ever, you know, that. Yeah. And it is that, I think it's getting more and more common. I think you know, if I say to somebody, oh, deith da, you know, probably half the people that I meet will respond in the same way.
Yeah.
You know, and so I mix with a lot of people that speak Cornish, so I'm in the minority. But I do think that some Cornish words are becoming more and more recognisable. Using Cerne for Cornwall, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, all and gwella, all the best. Lots of people use all and gwella in emails now. There's a singing group called All and Gwella, which is great. Oh, nice. So we're sort of seeing lots and lots of businesses using Cornish for their names. You know, yeah, we're seeing more and more use.
Yeah, I guess it's out there. It's not until you actually start thinking about it or noticing it that you're like, actually, it's always been there and it is still happening around us. But until you start noticing more little things.
Yeah, if you look around you, it's amazing how much Cornish there actually is just out there.
It's fascinating.
And at Christmas, there's lots and lots of people are using Nadelic Loan now, which is great to see.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. So obviously it's progressed a lot over the last few years, which is great. We love seeing the progression of it. Obviously keeping you very busy at Speak Cornish. Any other kind of projects or exciting things coming up in the pipeline? Yeah, so as well as I have two jobs. So I work for Speak Cornish, but I also work for one of the organisations that is part of Speak Cornish, which is called the co-ordinator Iaith Cynnuic, which is a Cornish Language Fellowship. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Yeah. Usually just known as co-ordinator. Nice. And it's actually the co-ordinator that put on the Language Weekend, so that's their kind of big annual event. And we've just started a new project called Revive, which is a European-funded project, funded by Horizon funding. The entire project is about €3 million worth of funding from Europe, so it's a big project. And there are 8 partners across Europe. And it's a research project looking at the use of immersive technology, so VR type technology, with language acquisition. Right. So Cornish is one of the case studies of the project, and then there's another case study which is Greco, which is a Greek language that's used in southern Italy. So it's going to be a really, really exciting. It's a 3-year project, so we've only just started last week. So so it's very fresh.
Very, very new, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, it sounds good.
Yeah, so we're hoping for, there will be some exhibitions and things around Cornwall as part of that project probably not this year, probably next year and the year after, which will include some of the technology that will be available to be used. And there are a couple of big international technology companies that are involved in the project.
Perfect.
Yeah, exciting.
The power of AI and tech and VR, it's all very exciting, and it's new ways to learn, isn't it? To keep things
absolutely.
Fresh.
And just all of those things that we want to be doing and experiencing in English, if we can do and experience those in Cornish, so much the better.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Oh, that sounds exciting. A nice new project. I look forward to seeing how that develops. Yeah. Going back to the Cornish Language Weekend, sort of on a final note, how can people get involved? Do they need to sign up, book tickets? How does it work?
So the ticket, you can book tickets. You need to book tickets in advance, really, just so that we have numbers for classes. And you can do that by going to the co-ordinator Iaith Cynnuic's website, which is cornish-language.org.
Okay.
But if you Google Cornish language, you'll probably come up with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, cornish-language.org. And you can book the tickets on there. There's a programme of all the sessions and a bit more information about what we've done in the past couple of years. There's some photos and the last couple of programmes as well, just to give you an idea of what the weekend looks like.
Love it. And if anyone listening maybe can't make it to that weekend, just as a reminder, that's from the 28th of March to the 30th, isn't it? If anyone can't make that weekend, but they still want to get involved and start learning Cornish, are there any other projects or schemes where people can get involved? Yeah, absolutely. There are 2 really good websites to look at. One is Speak Cornish website, so just speakcornish.com. And on there's a complete list of all of the lessons that are going on. So there's a list of online lessons, a list of in-person lessons, and then there's also a few kind of monthly meet-up sort of drop-in sessions. Lovely. And then there's another website called Go Cornish,
which is has links to different apps that you can use to learn Cornish. So we don't have Duolingo in Cornish, unfortunately. Even if everybody in the whole of Cornwall wanted to sign up for Duolingo, it wouldn't be enough people for Duolingo to put it as a language. So but there are similar sort of apps for minority languages. Okay. So there's links to there's one called IndieLan, which is 6 minority languages that have got together and made an app. There's Say Something in Cornish, which is kind of a listen and repeat. 10 lessons that you can just download. So all of these things are free as well. So you can just download them, have a go. There's huge amounts of free resources out there.
Lovely. Well, you are a incredibly busy lady. There is a lot going on, but I'm so glad to see everything that Speak Cornish and the Cornish language are doing right here in our county. It's great. All I've got to say is Muraz.
Muraz, printing.
Muraz, there we go.
NEWSWAVE.
Our thanks to Emma Jenkin of co-ordinator and Yeth Kenuik. That was just a snippet of her discussion with Ross. To hear the interview back in full, head on over to chaos.radio and click catch up. And just a reminder, you can catch Ross every Tuesday and Thursday here on Chaos Radio between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Okay, that's all we've got time for on this week's edition of NEWSWAVE. A big Chaos Radio thank you to Anne-Marie Bala, coordinator for the International Women's Group at the Women's Centre Cornwall, and to Beth Williams, their communications and training coordinator, as well as to Charlotte Patton, a women's health doctor at St Austell Healthcare, and Emma Jenkin of co-ordinator and Yeth Kenuik. And as ever, a final thank you to you for listening and helping support local journalism to thrive. To catch up on all our coverage, as well as to check out our extensive back catalogue of interviews and shows, head on over to chaos.radio. And remember, if you have a local news story that you'd like to share with us, email news@chaos.radio or search Chaos Radio UK across socials. That's it, you're up to date here on Chaos. I'm Tom Howe. Thank you so much for listening.
NEWSWAVE.
Chaos.radio. Music, podcasts, entertainment.